All right. Right now, I think the Nashville Predators are the big jerks of the NHL right now for stealing all the headlines, taking fans' beloved heroes of their franchises. They stole all the headlines of the NHL free agency. I've never really experienced this as a fan of the Nashville Predators. Maybe the only other time was when they made that magical run to the 2017 Stanley Cup final. But other than that, I can never remember a time when the Nashville Predators of all teams just completely steal the NHL headlines on NHL Free Agency Day, Max.
No, what a time it is to be a Preds fan for sure. A lot of people came into yesterday with not a ton of idea of what to expect. There are some people who were worried about what Trotz going to do. Some were excited. I never saw it coming like that, where you get the top two free agent forwards and one of the top defensemen out there.
That's just you got GMs out there on the edge of tears talking about losing certain players. You've got players coming out there saying, "Hey, I wanted to stick around in my so-called team, but they lowballed me. They didn't want me, so I went to a team that quote unquote wants to win." There's a lot of juice out there. There's no pun intended, because we're going to talk about Juuse Saros as well.
Right.
But there's a lot to chew on out there. It's a loaded episode. We've had a little bit of a time off since our last episode. This is Catfish on Ice podcast, episode 237 with Chad Minton and Max Greenberg. We have already geared ourselves up for a very long marathon type of episode tonight. We're ready for it. We've got so much to cover after coming out of a period where there wasn't a lot out there other than rumors and trade rumblings, but nothing to really chew on, nothing concrete. Now we have plenty of concrete news to talk about that is official. We are brought to you by DraftKings and Manscaped with promo codes THPN. First of all, let's tell you about Manscaped. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure to announce the Smooth Sack Summer is officially upon us. When you're playing in the summer sun, make sure you're groomed from pubes to bum. Thanks to our friends at Manscaped, you can make this season your smoothest yet. The Performance Package 5.0 Ultra is the ultimate bundle to keep your boys downstairs cool while looking hot. It's very hot in Florida right now. The humidity is ridiculous.
You think it's not in Tennessee? Oh,
no, come on. It's a crisp 90 degrees in Tennessee right now, Max.
Well, it's 100 here days ago. It might have even reached that, to be honest.
All right. But hey, the Performance Package 5.0 Ultra might not lower the temperature, but it's still going to help you out a lot, if you know what I'm getting at there. To keep your boys downstairs cool while looking hot, join the 10 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped with our exclusive offer. Get 20% off plus free shipping when you go to manscaped.com and use promo code THPN. Summertime and the trimming is easy. Every man knows how scary it can get when going for a close shave below the belt. That's why I trust Manscaped for all my sensitive areas. The 5th generation trimmer features 2 interchangeable next-gen skin-safe blade heads, a standard one for taking a little off the top and for the blade to cut close. So, yes, great product, waterproof, water resistance. It's going to do wonders for you. So, for that, get 20% off plus free shipping with the code THPN at manscaped.com. That's 20% off plus free shipping with the code THPN at manscaped.com. It's Smooth Sack Summer, boys. Get on board or get left behind. All right. We will also tell you about DraftKings and our sponsorship with them and the promo code we got with them later on. Before we get to that, let's tell you what the rundown is for this jam-packed episode 237 of Catfish on Ice podcast here. Obviously, the free agency madness that we could have never – we knew, first of all, that the Predators were going to be heavy spenders. We knew they had money to spend. But – in the first, what was it, Max? 5 minutes? They signed like 3.
Maybe even before. It came right around free agency started at 11 Central my time. Before that started, it was pretty much known that Stamkos had narrowed his options down to Nashville. Then, come 10:45 or whatever it was, we hear that the Preds are emerging as a contender for Jonanthan Marchessault. Sure enough, they end up signing him. At that point, it was like, oh my God, is this actually going to happen? Are we dreaming? Are we going to get the top 2 forwards I know they're old, but they were the top 2 forwards on the free agency market. And we're like, are we going to get these guys for real? And sure enough, it happens. It's not a dream. It's reality.
It really is. I mean, it's crazy to think about. I mean, look, the Steven Stamkos news was kind of bubbling up. You know, I was bringing it up for a while that there was a connection there. I was really giddy about possibly making it happen, but I never really thought it was going to happen. And especially when the Ryan McDonagh trade went down, I pretty much just kissed that dream goodbye for me personally. I just thought it's not going to happen.
I did too. Like I
was thinking the Preds don't land players like this. I mean, they've landed some big players in the past. You know, everyone points back to this is the biggest signing that the Predators have ever made in free agency since Paul Kariya. That's the connection, the natural connection. You got to go way back. I mean, there's a lot of people who didn't even know this team existed, who are fans of this team now, diehard fans. Back then, they didn't even know this team existed, maybe. You know, so Paul Kariya doesn't really give you that emotional sense for some of the newer fans. Right. They know who Paul Kariya is. They know how great he is. They don't have that connection. This might, for a lot of the new generations of fans that are fans of this Nashville Predators team, this is their first experience of signing a player of the caliber of Steven Stamkos.
And you going off of what you said, I never really took seriously the idea that he could be a Predator, because I thought, he'll just find a way to make it work in Tampa. He's been there. He's a captain his whole career. He wouldn't leave, at least if it were his choice. And speaking of that, I mean, can we talk about how the Lightning handled that? I mean, I know it's a business, but man, that seemed like a messy divorce for a guy and that was your captain for so long, such a good player. I know he's old, but not really showing any signs of slowing down. And not only did they let him walk, but they made it clear that they were going to let him walk when they traded for Jake Gensel. And then even today, they just signed Victor Hedman. I mean, it just seemed crazy how that whole thing went down. I mean, I don't know fully how you feel about it, Chad, but I was shocked that the way the Lightning handled that.
It is really crazy to watch. I mean, honestly, and see unfold. I just, and you know what? I'm down here in Tampa area. I'm in St. Pete. I've got a lot of friends that are Lightning fans, and they are just speechless right now.
Yeah.
They're very, they don't even know what to say. Like, I will say that some of them, they're actually happy that at least he's going to the Western Conference. He's not going to a division rival. But I'm not calling this some scientific research that I did or anything, but just the fans that I've talked to, the friends that I have down here, they're pretty ticked off at the front office of the Lightning that they maybe lowballed Stamkos a little bit here.
Significantly.
I mean, I'm hearing numbers of maybe $3 million is what they were at.
Over 8 years? When our good friend Clay Brewer posted something saying, 8x3 in a vacuum is an okay deal for a guy like Stamkos, but making him play till he's 42 and he has a family, that's not going to be appealing. He just want to cash in now.
Yeah, so we got it on the screen right here for our YouTube viewers and our X viewers. If you're watching right now and you're not following, you're not subscribing, hit the subscribe button. It helps us out a ton. Also, what really is important is we love when all of our listeners and our viewers jump in on the chat and speak with us and talk with us, because you guys got just as much knowledge, if not more, than me and Max do. You build the conversation. You make it even better. We love it when you talk to us. So this is what we got right here. We got Stamkos, 4 years, $8 million AAV. We got Jonanthan Marchessault with a 5-year, $5.5 million AAV, which all reports are saying that was a late development.
Yep.
It was not expected at all. There was no pre-rumblings, pre-free agency. I mean, if you're out there,
did you hear what actually happened?
Oh, go ahead and enlighten us, Max.
Yeah, well, I'm sure most of you know, but I don't know if you know, Chad, and I don't know who knows here, but apparently what happened before the Marchessault signing happened, apparently he had called Stamkos that morning because they were former teammates, and they're kind of like, what's going on? Stamkos I'm thinking Nashville, and Marchessault's like, let's do it.
It's awesome. Yeah, I did see that
feels
quote.
So good.
I did actually see that quote, but yes, I didn't I didn't realize it was that straightforward. But I mean, that just goes to show you that, and you're seeing, Barry Trotz in his press conference when he was talking about all this, he said so many things that just as a fan, you want to run through a brick wall right now for this guy, for what he just did. Now, let's ask ourselves a year from now how we feel about it. But at least looking at it on paper, and even Trotz said the same thing. One of the quotes he said in his press conference that really stood out to me the most was, okay, basically what he said was, we have a really, really good team on paper now, but what your team is on paper doesn't win games. You got to go out there and do it. You got to play better. That's basically what he said. So what I get from that is Trotz has gone out there and he's done his job. He's done his job as a general manager. He has put together a team on paper that you look at right now and you're thinking that team's dangerous. All you got to do is look at the odds, the sports odds, Stanley Cup odds for next year, for all the sports betting, gambling books right now. The Preds all of a sudden are way up there. They're like top 5. So you look at it on paper and you're thinking, okay, we got it. Now you got to perform. Now it's on head coach Andrew Brunette to do his job. Now it's on the players to do their job. And also real quick, Max, before you go, I wanted to bring up one more thing, and I want to get your thoughts on this. Barry Trotz also made sure everyone knew, hey, just like last year, it's going to be a learning curve. It's going to take some time. So are fans prepared after everything we've just gone through for this Preds team to, again, maybe stumble a little bit in the first 10 games?
Yeah. And, I think, one of the things I want to say that, we love, like you said, the comment about Trotz saying, on paper doesn't mean anything. And that's absolutely true. But what really differentiates a lot of these signings from the past is the type of player signing that you can just tell Trotz has a type. He said a lot of things. And, one of the things he said was, we want to get younger. And he didn't really stick to that plan. I know a lot of people are going to have feelings about that. And I was pretty shocked, too, when I saw this. But the one thing he has stuck true to his word on, above all else, is culture. And he used the term serial winners. Steven Stamkos, a cup winner, one of the most pedigree players you could find. Jonanthan Marchessault, former Conn Smythe winner, scored 40 goals this year. I mean, these are the kind of guys, like, it's so clear that above all else, Trotz is a culture guy, and that's what he wants for his team. And that's different than, and let's get one thing right. This is not the first time the Preds have made big signings. And Exhibit A is Matt Duchene several years ago signed to a 7-year, $8 million per year deal, but he is not nearly as pedigreed as a lot of these other guys, like Ryan O'Reilly, like Stamkos, like Marchessault. Yeah. And you can just tell what Trotz is doing is again, like, I know a lot of us laugh at that term. We kind of roll our eyes at times, but really it's important. The culture matters. And that's exactly what Trotz is doing. And that's
the front end of these contracts is really what's going to matter. Steven Stamkos, he's not a spring chicken anymore. Right. There's already signs that some of his game is declining. There's no argument from me on that. Of course, parts of his game are declining, but he still has one of the best shots in the league when it comes to one-timers on the power play. That is not he is one of the best power play goal scorers in NHL history. And I'm sorry, he was a 40-plus goal scorer this past season. So we have to make sure the Predators, and this is going to be Andrew Brunette's job, we got to make sure Stamkos is surrounded by players who can make him as close to as productive as he was in Tampa. Now, that's going to be hard to do. Right. But I just want to lay the list out there first for you, and then we're going to go into depth on each of these players because there's a lot to get into. So we got Jonanthan Marchessault there. Excuse the typo. I misspelled his name. I was moving fast today. I realized that I misspelled his name on the graphic there. But, hey, I call myself out. We got the A and the U mixed up. Hey, it ain't a spelling bee, but I did misspell his name. I'm sorry. I'm sure it's going to be the first of many times that I misspell his name. Scott Wedgwood there. Very interesting. We're going to get into it later more in depth, but it's being overlooked because you got Stamkos and Marchessault in there. But Wedgwood, 2 years. That's the interesting part of that one is he gets 2 years. I mean, Lankinen got the 1-year treatment as backup. Right. The Preds commit 2 years to him. Now it is cheap, $1.5 million AAV. So Lankinen was getting $2 million this past year. And then, of course, Brady Skjei, 7 years, Max.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Whoa.
Yeah, that's the one where and I wrote him Pred lines over there. That's the one where I'm like, that's a little scary.
Yeah. I'm not sure about that
a
one.
lot of money and a lot of term for a 30-year-old man.
We're going to dive into that more, but those are just the 4 big ones. We're also going to talk about the Preds keeping one of their own. That's Alexandre Carrier, which is also a little bit out of left field. Before that, we got so many comments flooding in right now, and I want to make sure I say hi to everyone that means so much to this podcast. Of course, our buddy Johnny, who goes under the name Predemption, who does his own YouTube channel that's very successful. He was in early tonight. He said, "Anybody else here?
Is anyone else here?"
I think Johnny. I think Johnny got here before me and you got here.
Johnny's always here early.
He's very committed. We got Matt in here. Our buddy Matt. We love him. He's here.
Matt H. Matt, is that our Matt we're thinking of?
I think it's Matt Hardesty. Yes,
I think it is too.
Who's very knowledgeable and knows his stuff. We got Justin Gambino in here. He says hello. And let's keep strolling down. Matt talking about as smooth as my head. That's smooth. Handball is what I can say. Hey, Matt, I knew that me and you had a bond. Bald guys, we stick together. Yes, that is freshly.
I think I'm going to be too, because my dad is bald and my mom's father was also bald. I mean, I still got it right now.
No,
I feel like years. It's going to be years for me. That's going to happen. It's going to happen to me at some point.
First of all, embrace the baldness. There's nothing wrong with it. I got the beard to balance it out. I think that's what bald guys do these days. Is they try to balance it out at least. But yes, thank you, Matt, for solidarity there on the bald guys, fellow bald guys. We got Lindsay in here. Hello, friends. Hello, Lindsay. I'm so excited to have you here and talk about a great free agency for the Preds. That's what Lindsay says. I think a lot of people are saying that.
Oh yeah.
We got Alex. I've interacted with Alex a lot on X or Twitter, whatever you want to call it. And he's on YouTube tonight. Alex, so excited to have you join our live episode here. Incredibly slimy by Tampa's front office to treat their longtime captain like that. I get that he's aging, but the fact that they made a little to no effort to keep him is astonishing. That's what Alex says on YouTube. Thank you, Alex. We're going to unpack that a little bit more, but I think most of the NHL world agrees. So, yeah, we got a lot of people in here. Johnny jumps in. FanDuel live odds went from 31-1 for the Preds half an hour before free agency opening on Monday to 25-1. So, yeah, interesting stuff there. Clint, our friend Clint, Clint's commented on the show plenty of times. Clint says we are now the second oldest team. So we're definitely in a win now window. Good.
Yeah, anybody who thinks a rebuild's happening, oh, nope, not happening anytime soon.
Great point brought up there by Clint, though, for sure. We've gone from the retool phase, and maybe in a future episode, Max, because we're so loaded tonight, but in a future episode, maybe me and you can discuss, is the youth movement, is it officially dead? Well, we're not going to, hey, Max, we're going to save it for another episode. We have so much to talk about tonight, so we'll save that for another episode. But all right, we're getting caught up. Also, Daniel, also known as Preds Threads, very popular on X. You need to go be following Preds Threads on X. Great follow. And we appreciate him giving us a follow tonight. Very honored to have him. And he's jumping in on X. And he said, you got Skjei right. So he's talking about my spelling.
And the pronunciation. That's going to be a hard pronunciation for some people. They're not going to realize that it's that simple.
So Daniel, you're absolutely right. But that one's only 5 letters, so I feel like there's less chance of screwing that one up. Marchessault, that's a lot of letters. You really got to make sure you don't do that one wrong. But all right, good stuff from everyone. We really appreciate you. We'll get back into the comments a little bit later. But let's roll along here. It's episode 237. We're about to go in depth on each of the top 4 free agency signings by the Preds. We're also going to talk about Juuse Saros. The contract extension had not happened yet in episode 236, the last time we talked about this. And if you go back and look on our Twitter account, we shared a clip tonight, so you can go watch it, where me and Max were talking about our jumping off points, if you will, about a Saros extension. We were still saying maybe a trade's going to happen. We weren't sure. We were thinking
it was.
We thought it might drag out a little bit, but hindsight 2020, Saros has got his 8-year deal. We're going to get into it, but go watch that video, our jumping off point. My top dollar was $7.5 million per year, and they came out a little bit above that.
Mine was even less.
But 8 years is a long time to hitch a wagon to anybody. We're going to get into that. We're going to talk. We got to do a draft recap because the draft has also happened since our last episode. Yep. So we're gonna really touch on the top 2 draft picks and what scouts are saying. Got a lot of good stuff from scouts on what they said about the top 2 draft picks that the Preds made in round 1 and round 2. We'll also go a little bit further down the draft board and talk about those players. We have the rest of the offseason to really get into the draft class and break that down. But we definitely want to talk about round 1 and round 2 and what the Predators did. They didn't trade. They didn't move. They stayed at number 22, which is kind of what people are talking about here is Barry Trotz has done all of this and not touched his draft capital.
Yeah.
I mean, and Barry Trotz, we trust. You're seeing that a lot out there right now.
I mean, I guess that's part of the justification. I mean, for doing the signings we did now to say, hey, we're all in. I guess you can say I don't know exactly what he's thinking. I'm not saying I'm necessarily thinking this way, but part of the justification could be like, hey, we are trying to win now, but because we're keeping all our draft picks and all that, that's how we're planning for the future. So I don't know. I don't know what really Barry Trotz's doing, but there's a reason he's got the job and I don't.
Yeah. So we're about to put on the screen right now our poll question that we put out on X. So all the YouTube viewers and X viewers who are watching live right now can see this. We wanted to ask fans, which team's fans do you think is more angry and will hate the Preds most for taking their favorite player in free agency today? And so no surprise, you're seeing it there. They think the Lightning fans are going to be most angry at the Preds. And the way I really wanted to frame this question is, really, are you angry at the Preds or are you angry at your own team for not keeping that player?
That's what I'm saying too, because the Lightning are going to be obviously angry that Stamkos is gone, but I feel like they understand he was lowball. They kind of know that the organization kind of did him dirty. But I feel like the Knights, their fan base is going to be irrational.
So that's what I'm saying.
Their fan base will be the angriest.
That's what I'm saying right now. So see, and look, I actually spelt Marchessault right there too.
You did.
Oh, yeah, see, I'm 1 out of 2. I'm 50% now. I'm batting 500. But yeah. So right now with the poll question, we've got the Lightning at 69%, the Knights at 22%. I'm surprised that the Knights are that low in this poll because I voted that the Knights fans would be most angry because it kind of blindsided them a little bit, I'm sure. And it's not like the Predators really unloaded the bricks truck to get him. I mean, $5.5 million per year, 5 years for a guy who won the Conn Smythe not that long ago.
42 goals last year.
42 goals. The Predators signed 240.
I mean, the term is a little long, yes, but that AAV, it's pretty damn good.
Really good. And then also, just looking at it this way, he fits this team perfectly in the way he plays.
Oh, yeah.
He's got a high motor. He plays with high energy. And then you also look at Marchessault and the fact that so he put up 42 goals this past season. Up until this past season, that was Philip Forsberg's career high in goals. So you're essentially getting another Philip Forsberg type of player when it comes to goal scoring. So, I mean, it's crazy to think that it almost feels like a bonus. It really does. So I would say, and we're going to talk about the schedule. The schedule release was also dropped for the Predators and the rest of the NHL. We're going to round out this episode tonight with that, touching on that. But just to give you a little bit of a hint on these revenge tours that we like to talk about when it comes to Stamkos and Marchessault in particular. Marchessault is not going to have to. He only has to play at Vegas once, and that's not going to be till the third to last game of the regular season. So Gold Knight
schedule quite that carefully, so I don't really know when the games and all that stuff.
So Gold Knights fans are not going to have to go through the awkwardness of welcoming Marchessault in a Preds uniform until April. So they got that going for him. You see Skjei down there at 6%. No one really thinks the Hurricanes are going to be that angry at us. Although there is some bad blood. That for whatever reason, going back to that first round series against the Hurricanes, they don't like us very much.
One of my good friends who's a Canes fan, and he really knows what he's talking about. I talk to him all the time about hockey in general, and when we signed Sham, like, that seems like a lot for him. And he said, oh, he does everything. Like, it's a little long, but he's so worth the $7 million. He's offered nothing but praise for the Preds in the past 2 days.
Yeah, there you go. And then way down at the bottom, it's a backup goalie, so you wouldn't expect Stars fans to be totally up in arms about it. But I will say, just going across social media, there are a lot of Stars fans that are a little down about not only their free agency performance, because the Stars did nothing to get better. I mean, they did re-sign Matt Duchene to another deal for $3 million. But other than that, the Stars did absolutely nothing to get better in free agency.
They really didn't do much. I'm thinking about it, yeah.
But Wedgwood is a guy that was very highly respected in that locker room for the Stars. So it is tough that they lost him. And it's another situation where I came across where Wedgwood wanted to stay. He really wanted to stay. And I know players say that all the time. They're trying to say the right thing and they're trying to look, like good in the media. But when it comes to Stamkos, Marchessault, and Wedgwood, all three of them legitimately seemed like they really wanted to stay in at their current teams, and it didn't happen. So just a little bit of interest there that all three found new homes with the Predators. So there's the poll question. No doubt about it that Lightning fans are really having a hard time. Check on your Lightning friends right now. If you have any friends that are Lightning fans, you need to go check on them, make sure they're okay.
Yeah, I do feel bad for Lightning fans, honestly. Seeing your captain lowballed like that, man, that would leave a bad. They got Jake
Yensel. They got Jake Yensel. It's not a complete loss.
But
they just
a year for 7. They're paying him $9 million a year,
and they just extended Victor Hedman, so they got that done with.
Here's my thing with the Lightning. So with where they are in their window, my thought was, okay, and the Preds have kind of been guilty of this for overextending their cup window, and you can argue they're doing it now. That's fine. My thought with the Lightning was, okay, if you're gonna try and be all in, I would thought they were gonna do something like a last hurrah with the core that went to the Cup, maybe 2 or so more years of trying to contend, especially when you bring McDonough back. They're not even doing that. Like, I really don't understand what Julian Breezeball, if that's how you pronounce his name. I don't know what he's really doing there. And I would not feel great if I were a Tampa Bay Lightning fan, although they won recent Stanley Cup, so you can only talk too much crap about them.
Yeah, I mean, look, we already touched on it. We thought that for sure that they were going to figure out a team-friendly deal. Even Stamkos brought it up that, they were going to try to figure something out, but they could not come to an agreement. They couldn't. And it's just a weird situation because it seems like both sides wanted to be together. So what went wrong here? It's weird. But let's focus on the future. Let's focus on the fact that Steven Stamkos is a Nashville Predator now. I can only imagine the jersey sales that are about to happen for Stamkos. But let me just first open up with this. When I think about players who don't wear a Predator sweater that I have the most respect for in this league, Stamkos for me is probably top of the list. He really is. Yeah. I mean, I've always said I've always loved Marc-Andre Fleury and the way he carries himself. There's others out there, but I mean, I've always just appreciated the way Stamkos carries himself, the way he's a family first guy. He's a great role model. He's a great leader, but he's a Hall of Fame player on the ice as well. And he wanted so badly to remain loyal to the Lightning. But we know in today's sports world, in all sports, it is very hard to stay with the same team for your entire career. It just doesn't happen anymore very often. So we're getting a type of player right now that wants to play out the rest of his illustrious Hall of Fame career in a Predator sweater. Now, he'll always be known first as a Tampa Bay Lightning player, and we're not trying to steal that from Lightning fans at all. But when you talk about instant upgrade to make yourself a Stanley Cup contending team, Steven Stamkos is obviously that. Is he declining in certain areas that a lot of scouts and analysts have brought up? Of course he is. But I said in a couple episodes ago, there's exceptions to every rule when it comes to signing aging players.
Yes.
Steven Stamkos blast away when it comes to the exception to the rule.
Yeah, absolutely. When you get a guy with that talent and that pedigree, you do what you can to get him. Just don't overthink it. Like, that's the kind of guy you want on your team no matter what. At the end of the day, yes, maybe Stamkos is declining, but what you're paying him mostly to score goals. I don't think his shots decline at all, and really improve the power play. And yes, there's other issues with the Preds power play. But when have we had a guy that can just shoot the puck and score like nobody's business? That in itself is going there. Again, there's other issues you're going to have to fix, like getting into the zone. I mean, you got to get into the zone to set up chances. Mm-hmm. But, I mean, when you get that guy, he's going to improve so much of this team. I mean, yeah.
So let's address what Alex is saying here on YouTube. We really need to cover it. And it's hard to say right now, but where does Stamkos obviously slot into this lineup? He's naturally a center, but I don't know how with the way this lineup is made up right now. I don't know if you can make Stamkos a center on this team. I mean, is he going to be
on the wing for a few years, at least one?
Exactly. So he's probably going to be more effective to stay on the wing, most likely. But that puts a lot of pressure on Tommy Novak, likely, and that's what Alex is bringing up here. And what they talked about on 102.5 The Game this morning on the flagship station of the Nashville Predators. So also Alex brings up, and this is what I'm thinking here, do you run it back with the wildly successful top line, the most efficient offensive top line in Nashville Predators history of Forsberg, O'Reilly, Nyquist? Let's just go ahead and throw this out there, though. And Max, you've been all over this for
I know what's coming.
Gus Nyquist is a very viable trade option right now as well.
Well, I mean, I feel like things changed. I mean, I obviously was on here. I was on Pred lines. I was a lot of the places saying Nyquist is a perfect trade piece. But I mean, now, and I'm not going to be mad if you trade him at all. But like now, with the way the team is, that's not nearly, that's not nearly as much of a, I want it to happen kind of thing like it was. And I will say, as long as he's here, I agree with Alex. I don't think you touch that line. Maybe, who knows if they can continue? I don't know. And I honestly think they probably don't continue to quite that pace. But I mean, like he said, if it ain't broke, you don't fix it. And it ain't broke.
So we're about to share on the screen from Daily Faceoff their early projection of what the Predators will do with their lineup. Let's put it on the screen here. So this is what they got, and we're gonna break it down. So this is what Daily Faceoff has. So they got Philip Forsberg, Ryan O'Reilly, and Gus Nyquist sticking together as a top line. You look at the second line, and you see Tommy Novak centering Steven Stamkos and Jonanthan Marchessault. You want to talk about if that ends up coming to fruition, that is some serious pressure on Novak. Yeah. There's no more excuses, man. No. And you're talking about Novak, 6 games. In the 6 games in the first round series, he went goose egg in points. He was invisible. He didn't show up.
No.
Against
we both talked about on here, and you and I pretty much had an identical opinion. We don't know if he can really play center because we saw the deficiencies in his physical game really exposed in that series against Vancouver. And I think, honestly, I could definitely see them trying it out at least, but like, I definitely think there's going to be some mixing and matching. And
so what's your plan B, Max? What's your plan B if that lineup is opening night and it's a failure for the first few games and you have to go back to the drawing board? How do you shuffle that up? Where do you put Novak? Where do you put Stamkos? What do you do with this?
I'd probably put at least this is the first. I mean, there could be multiple plans to fix it, but my first course of action, if this does not work out, is you put Novak back on the wing and you put Stamkos at center. Really put Stamkos at center. Maybe you even put Evangelista on that second line.
So you switch Stamkos and Novak, or maybe you even move Novak out of the top 6.
Potentially.
I mean, that's kind of what I'm thinking too, is I think you this makes the most sense to start the season.
Yes.
And you see how Novak responds, because you still have, Novak just got a new deal.
Yeah.
This past season. So you have to see where this goes. You have to give him a chance to really blossom.
Yes. Yeah. There's some people out there, and I've seen, who are scared of his future, saying maybe we should get rid of him. I think that's absolutely crazy. He's been a good player. He's been a good player, all things considered. Yeah, he had a rough playoff, but he's still learning. He's still growing. You sign him for a reason because you believe in him. And if you're going to trade him, that just sends a really bad message. You got to at least give him a chance to really get better. And I honestly think he can do it.
Our buddy Matt says Novak is not good. I trade him, but he's a 3C at his ceiling. There you go there. Justin says, yes, Stammer, definitely a winger for us unless we have some injuries and stuff. And yeah, there you go. So let's go further down this projected lineup from Daily Faceoff. Of course, very preliminary here. Like, it's nothing set in stone, of course, but just it's worth talking about. You go into the bottom six, and Trotz, again, to go back to that press conference he just had, he talked about how the youth is not dead here. In fact, they're going to have chances to play their way up, but Trotz has always talked about how important it is to protect the youth.
Yep.
Protect the youth with the veterans. And I know a lot of fans don't like to hear that, because they've been having it shoved down their throat for the past 3 years about the youth movement. But, well, guess what? I hate to break it to you guys, but the youth movement came to a screeching halt. And a big reason why is a lot of these younger players, for one reason or the other, did not really perform at the same level that you would like them to see perform in big moments, other than Luke Evangelista. I will take him out of it. And even, Novak still had a pretty productive year. I'm not saying he had a complete bust of a year and we should give up on him. But when you just think about that core of younger players, it was kind of a setback year. If anything, it was just kind of it definitely wasn't a year where you saw a ton of growth from that core. Juuse Saros finished the season in Milwaukee, maybe the best for him. I'm not saying it was a bad move. I think it was a great move to send him back to Milwaukee. Philip Tomasino, we still don't know if he's what's happening with him.
I don't.
He had Igor Afanasyev just got traded to the Sharks, and now
what happened to him?
Yeah, he's bolting for the KHL.
That's crazy.
So he was thought to be a key piece of the future. I had him as a key part of the future. So there's a lot of question marks about the future of this youth movement. But when it comes to Trotz, he's trying to adapt. He's trying to move and adapt here. So the bottom six is going to be where the youth is going to be at, whether you like it or not.
Yep.
And so a guy like Evangelista, he's going to have to play his way up. Juuse Saros, he's going to have to play his way up based on this lineup. You see Colton Sissons as the third line center. And then you look at that bottom line, which was that grinded out line, that tone setter line. Well, Kiefer Sherwood's gone, everybody. Right. He got his money, and I'm so happy for Kiefer Sherwood. And he's going to a team that I think is going to be a great fit for him.
Absolutely. With how physical they are, he's going to thrive over there.
Yes. So Sherwood's gone. So you look at the fourth line now, very much up for grabs, as you would expect. No one at this point in the offseason can predict what the bottom six is going to look like. But there you have it. There's what Daily Faceoff is projecting. So the Steven Stamkos effect and the Jonanthan Marchessault effect. But just to get more into Steven Stamkos, obviously his biggest strength is going to be to finally unlock the full potential of the Predators' power play. We already know that that's Brunette's breadbasket. That's what he thrives in. We saw flashes here and there of the Predators' power play, well-oiled machine, but it really fell flat on its face once we got to the playoffs, Max.
Even before then, towards the end of the 18-game point streak, it started to kind of fizzle out. And Brunette even said, it had been an all-year thing with the power play, too, that something was wrong with it. And I don't know. I mean, there's things, but I mean, ultimately, though, my thought is you need more talent.
Yeah. Well,
you need more talent. That you're not gonna light up the lamp. I mean, you had, of course, you had your Forsberg, you had your Josti O'Reilly. That's not enough, though. You need more, and that's part of the reason why you see Stamkos and Marchessault get signed by the Preds.
So we're about to share it on the screen here from Statleet, which is on X. Really interesting stat here that I came across. There's Steven Stamkos, and this is looking at power play production and, most importantly, one-timers. And so you're looking at one-timers per game, which is what Stamkos is known for. 2.49 is his value per game of one-timers. That's first in the NHL. Power play one-timers per 2 minutes is first in the NHL. One-timer goals. Steven Stamkos had 21 one-timer goals. That was tied for third. Power play one-timer goals, 14 for Stamkos. That was second. Going down the list, power play goals, Stamkos had 19, which was tied for third. You go further and further down. You can see it on the screen there. Now, the critics here are going to say, well, yeah. I mean, when you're on a team where you got Nikita Kucherov on the other side, like, are you going to have people who are ready to feed those pucks to Stamkos? I'm just saying preliminary top power play unit for the Preds is looking pretty ridiculous on paper. If you put Roman Josi out there feeding pucks to Stammer, when you put Forsberg out there, who showed that he can be a puck distributor with all of his assists he had this past season, you got Ryan O'Reilly as your anchor out there. We know what he does in close on the goaltender. I mean, this is going to be a loaded top power play unit, Max.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Again, like I say, the big thing is you can fix all your strategies, whatever. But again, it starts with talent. You need more talent, and that's exactly what Stamkos provides. And also say, I mean, we know Stamkos is a good player, even though, yes, he had Kucherov point. It's Stamkos. He's a great player regardless. Like, let's not sell him that short. Although I know what you're saying, Chad.
Yeah, I'm not worried about Stamkos not having the proper line mates on a power play unit. The Preds have that. Yeah. They do. And you got to think about it this way too. When penalty kills defend a power play and they've got to deal with a Steven Stamkos, that's going to leave opportunities for other players to score.
Yeah.
So if anything, Stamkos is going to be what you would call a decoy in some situations.
Yes.
Because that penalty kill is going to be honing in on Stamkos.
Yeah.
And so you're thinking, like, if you got Forsberg on that power play unit as well, and you've got Josi on there, and you've got O'Reilly out there, I mean, come on now. It's going to be no excuses. Let's put it that way. To be,
you're right, absolutely no excuses.
Not only a top 10 power play, I would say they need to be top 5 most likely. Yeah. And then you're thinking ahead, if this team makes the playoffs, which on paper they absolutely should. That's where, I mean, I said it going into these past playoffs. I said it very clearly that you have to be able to win on special teams to make it in the playoffs. And I said that when we were previewing the series against the Canucks. And that's not rocket science. I'm just saying what I said. And the Predators, obviously, on the defensive end of things, they played great, but their power play completely fell flat. So you're seeing a response to that now with a player like Stamkos. Is there injury concerns? I've seen some people say, oh, he's going to – good luck getting him for 75-plus games or whatever. I mean, there's always an injury risk. You can't say you're not going to take a player because you're worried that player's going to get hurt.
And it's not, and he's been much healthier over the past few years as he's gotten even older. Like his chances, as far as I'm concerned, as much as anyone else.
Kyle Pereira, good friend of mine and covers the Lightning. He's a great scout. Check out his draft stuff and what he did on his draft coverage of the 2024 NHL draft. We're going to get him on the podcast soon. We got to come together on a time, but the guy is a wealth of knowledge. But he covers the Lightning in particular, and Kyle jumps in and says, such a stud on the power play. Yeah, one of the best all time on the power play.
And I really love especially your point, Chad, about saying just his presence alone is going to open things up because teams are going to be so worried about him. So, yeah, you have to absolutely consider that as well.
Yeah. Other things that Stamkos is obviously going to bring to the team is that veteran leadership, that thing that Trotz is talking about, to lead the younger players. And you've already got Ryan O'Reilly in that mix, who's doing great things for this team as for terms of captain like leadership, and of course Josi is already there. Forsberg is coming of age, and he's starting to become another one of those types of veteran leaders. So you've got a blend of both right now, but obviously the Preds are one of the oldest teams in the league now after what they just did in free agency.
Yeah, no, they certainly didn't get younger as they said they might. But I mean, to be fair though, I mean, when you get Stamkos and Marchessault who absolutely want to come to Nashville, I mean, how do you really say no?
All right, let's move along. Let's get more into Jonanthan Marchessault here. Max, I'm going to give you the floor here. We already kind of touched on it, his high energy, his high motor. Let me just say first, before you go, I actually think in the long run, this could end up being a more impactful move for this franchise than Stamkos.
Again, like I think my only kind of hold up with the deal is the term. But again, like I said, the $5.5 million per year, that's honestly kind of a steal for what he brings. And again, the talent, the pedigree. I mean, again, he's older, but like the guy like that who brings so much to the table, and forget him for as cheap as you did. I mean, that, and I mean, I kind of sort of agree in a sense, like that's kind of the X factor, getting him for that cheap of a price. I mean, that's crazy.
Yeah, and so getting into Preds and Threads here, Daniel Rogers on X, he jumps in and says, special teams was 100% our undoing in the playoffs. To see a Preds team that actually bullies other teams around on the power play in the playoffs would be rare and beautiful. Well said by Daniel. Yep. And Marchessault fits in that as well. He's not I wouldn't call Marchessault a power play specialist, but expect him to also be on the power play, maybe even the top unit as well. And I think it was Robbie Stanley or Adam Vinian, one of them. It might have been Adam Vinian. I want to give proper credit, but it was one of those two. They did a show together today on the morning show of 102.5 The Game. And I think it was Adam that said that it could be a situation where the Preds don't take their top power play unit off the ice for the whole 2 minutes.
And that would be something. Although, I mean, to be fair, one of the things that, I guess maybe talk more so the penalty kill, but one of the things I heard Barry Trotz say in the press conference was part of the reason you sign these players so you don't have to overexert other players on special teams. Like, because like for a lot of years, we've known the Preds power play. I mean, when it's been good, it's been one unit and that's it. So like you have now more depth, and also on the penalty kill too. I mean, the Preds at this point, special teams should be a strength.
And Marchessault just set a personal career high in goals scored with Vegas, Conn Smythe winner. And another thing about Marchessault is he is one of those guys that he's undrafted, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Is he? I didn't know.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Jonanthan Marchessault. Jump in the comments. I could be completely wrong, but if I remember correctly, Jonanthan Marchessault is a undrafted player.
I'm looking that up right now, actually.
Because when he won the Conn Smythe Trophy, that's all people talked about was an undrafted player just won the Conn Smythe.
I did not realize that. If that
undrafted, yes. All right, so I'm on Cap Friendly. Rest in peace, Cap Friendly. Let's see how much longer you last. Kidding. But yes, undrafted was Jonanthan Marchessault.
He is indeed. Wow. I did not even realize that myself. Learned something new.
Pretty amazing. He played out his entry-level contract from 2012 to 2015 with the Columbus Blue Jackets.
Here's this something that'll throw you for a loop. Undrafted and unprotected in the Vegas expansion draft.
And he was one of the original Vegas Golden Knights players of that core.
Even then, though, that was a little thing, because everyone even knew at the time that was a terrible decision by the Florida Panthers, which, congratulations, you won the Cup. But that at that time was a terrible decision by the Panthers, and everyone knew it.
And going back to that whole deal, it's just, I mean, going back to the poll question at the beginning of the episode, I mean, I got to think Golden Knights fans are maybe even hurting more than Lightning fans right now, because your franchise is much younger. And you just lost an undrafted blue-collar player who's the hero of your franchise, really, when it comes to an underdog type of player and what he meant to that franchise. But, yeah, so we got Marchessault coming in, probably going to be a second-line player. But think about the top 6 the Predators have going for them now. All you need is Tommy Novak to step up and be ready to go.
That's really going to be the X factor. Can Novak really take the reins and become that 2 center? People are going to have their doubts, but if it happens, I think it's a chance. I wouldn't say it's a great chance, but I think it could happen.
He's going to be under the microscope for sure, especially if that lineup holds true. But let's move further down the list. Let's get to Brady Skjei. That's one that we're not as glowing about. Not about the player. Let's be very clear here. I think that Brady Skjei is going to be an immediate upgrade to what the Predators didn't have after trading Ryan McDonagh. So you had to go out and do something.
Right.
We knew that. And we're expecting Skjei to be on the top pairing with Roman Josi, and Josi moves to the right side, which
that's what I think is going to happen.
So that's your ripple effect there when it comes to the Preds D-Corps. And then that keeps Carrier and Lauzon together, which was very, very effective. Probably the most consistent Preds D pairing of the entire season. And then that probably keeps Luke Schenn and Spencer Stastny together. So really the status quo stays the same for the most part, except for the top pairing. You put Skjei in there with but 7 years, man. Oh, I don't know, man.
That's a lot. I mean, I don't know if people are going to agree with this as much. I put in the article saying, because one of the things I was saying was the Preds really needed to improve on the right side of their defense. And Brady Skjei is a left defenseman. I mean, I know it wasn't quite that simple because McDonagh requested a trade. Offensively, he's not going to be as gifted as Skjei, especially at least in the goals department. But it almost, with how much of a part of this team McDonagh was, it's like it almost makes you wonder: should you have just kept McDonagh? I mean, it's hard to really say.
I don't think so, because I mean, even though yes, you're committing $7 million per year to Skjei.
Good Lord.
He is younger, and he does have more offensive.
He is much younger. Yes,
he has more offensive upside to McDonagh. And what I see from all of this is Trotz is. I don't think he can put all of his chips on the table at once, but he came very close. And he is, when it comes to these deals, he is looking for front end value. And if the Predators do not deliver, then it's going to be bad news in 2 or 3 years. If the Predators are still a first-round cursed playoff team, or even a second round, if the Predators haven't made it to at least the conference finals and put up a really good fight to make the Cup final at the very bare minimum in the next 2 to 3 years, that's when these contracts are going to really start looking bad, and you're going to have to answer to it. But until that happens, Trotz is banking on the early terms of these contracts.
Yes.
When it comes to all 3 of these ones we're talking about. But the Brady Skjei one, that's a lot of years to commit. It has me nervous. I like the player. I think, like I said, I think he has a really good shot. And
his offensive instincts are great.
He's going to provide some bonus. I like to call it bonus offense when you get goals from guys like that. He's going to give it.
He scored 18 goals 2 years ago.
He's going to give the Preds that. The Preds are going to be a much better, well-rounded offensive team with the 3 additions we're talking about. But is he going to keep that up throughout the length of the contract? Most likely not. That's why we're very upset about 7 years. But in the short term, it's a great upgrade. It is. On paper for 2024-25, I got no qualms about it. It's a great upgrade.
Yeah, again, as we both agree, that contract is definitely one of those that scares me. And I will say, of this free agency class, that's definitely up there with the contracts we were like, ooh, that's a lot.
All right, let's move along to our last major free agency upgrade, and that is Scott Wedgwood, who's going to be the new backup, but not necessarily the new backup. He's going to be one of them. There's going to be competition. Right. Everyone was all about it. It was like, oh, Yaroslav Askarov, he is gone. Here's the exit. He is good as gone. He's not coming back.
I
But
thought so too.
Everything, and it could still happen. We're not saying he couldn't be traded, but everything right now appears to be that Askarov is going to give Wedgwood competition in training camp, and we're going to see where we come out of it from there.
Yeah, that's what Barry Trotz said. I mean, it's at this point, it's kind of a tough thing because, obviously when Saros re-signed, which we're going to talk about, I'm sure, that everyone thought to themselves, okay, well then Askarov's going to be gone. I mean, but now after you've made all the moves, you spent all the money, you don't really have cap space left to make other moves. So it's almost one of those things that you might as well keep him now. I don't know. I mean, I would still be okay trading him, but also another thing is Barry Trotz said that he might still make another move or two to clear cap space and maybe to maximize assets. Askarov can be at that, but also kind of backtracking a little bit, maybe not spend too long on this, but like with the developments on defense, you got to think Dante Fabro's going to be out the door quickly, right?
That's what I'm thinking. Yeah, I've actually been thinking about that. When you're thinking about Trotz saying that there's other moves that might be made to clear up some cap space,
that's the one.
Dante Fabro comes up first for me.
You have to, and I know for a lot of people, including myself at times, it's puzzling seeing Fabro seemingly play well in the top pair with Roman Josi. Wonder why does he not get all the top minutes? But let's face it. We cannot sit here this whole time and just say the coaches don't know what they're doing. They obviously see something with Fabro that they don't love. And the fact that they held him out of the playoffs when everyone was healthy for Spencer Sasny, that speaks volumes. There's something going on that they're just not seeing on him. And
Fabro should be an easy player to move, quite frankly. Yeah. I mean, he's only got 1 year left. There's got to be some teams out there who see something in him, and it could be just he needs to change the scenery type of situation. So I think he's an easy player to move. I mean, you're not going to clear up a ton of cap space by moving him, but you can
2.5. I mean, it's
something.
Every penny counts.
Considering the Predators have what is it? They have other than the teams that are basically at $0, the Predators have the fewest.
Preds are right there. They got nothing almost. I mean,
Trotz definitely maxed out the credit card. I mean,
he sure did.
We all know that balance comes due eventually,
But hey, you can maybe pay off your bill a little early by making a trade trade up Dante Fabro.
There you go. Yeah. So, I mean, and Gus Nyquist is up there as well, but I'm thinking more and more that it might not make sense to move Nyquist at this point.
Not as much anymore.
Because then do you really want to rattle your top six even more?
Yeah, you gotta have a replacement. You gotta have a replacement.
And looking at that top six projected, what we just looked at, it looks rock solid. Other than the question of, is Tommy Novak ready?
And I've been saying a lot of there's no way Nyquist is going to be as good as he was last year. I still don't believe that, but at the very least, he could be a rock solid, like you said, rock solid second liner.
And you open the season seeing if you can just carry it over from last season, though. Of course, you give it a chance. At least you have to give it a chance. And then if things go wrong and there's something going on, then you shuffle things up. But at this point, it made sense before free agency, but I don't know if it makes sense now.
Yeah, to trade that's exactly what I say as well.
So you're thinking now Dante Fabro. Who else could be traded? The younger core could definitely be traded. The younger core could definitely be traded at this point.
It's tough because I feel bad, but another guy, a great way to clear cap, and I don't see really how he fits in with the roster anymore. Cody Glass, he makes also $2.5 million.
Yes,
and I feel bad.
I didn't even think about that.
He's a good guy, and he posted on his Instagram story he was happy about Jonanthan Marchessault being signed, but he doesn't mean Glass is safe at all.
Look at what Matt's saying here. I trade any combo of Tomasino, Fabro, Askarov, and draft picks for Zegras and Nichas.
I would agree with Matt on that one. I mean, if you could make room for them, hell yeah.
I mean, could you imagine if something like that happened? I mean, the Predators have already stole the offseason when it comes to free agency. I mean, they're every headline you come across. The rest of the league has to be envious. It's like every time I pull up social media, it's Predators this, Predators that. Trotz this, Trotz that, Stamkos this, March. They have just completely captured the NHL landscape now that the Florida Panthers dust has settled and they've won the Stanley Cup, and now we're in off-season. Everyone's in off-season mode now. It's almost like the Florida Panthers never even won the Stanley Cup. It didn't even happen that long ago, and it's like everyone's forgotten about it, and everyone's focused on the off-season. And the Nashville Predators are the center of the NHL world right now when it comes to free agency. Could you imagine if what Matt
is at the center of the hockey world? I mean, wow.
Could you imagine if that happens, what Matt's saying here, if they just like figure out a way to unload Tomasino, Fabro, and get Zegras? I mean,
you got to throw Glass in there too at that point.
And Matt says that, he says or Glass.
Yeah. But I think Glass, I mean, this is going to be rough, but I think he's one of the first ones you move on from in this case. I mean, yeah.
All right, we just passed the hour mark. We warned everybody this is going to be a marathon episode. We're not even we just now got through our top 4 free agents the Predators just signed. We still have so much to get into. And it wasn't all the Predators did in free agency. Let's quickly touch on Alexandre Carrier and how he was brought back for 3 years, AAV $3.75 million. Do you think that's a pretty fair deal? How are you feeling about that? I love it personally.
I love it too. And there's a lot of people who don't, because Carrier's not sexy. He's not that flashy, although he does have that upside of his offensive game. He still isn't unlocked yet, but he took such strides in his defensive game last year. He's the definition of a dependable defenseman. And let's face it, in today's NHL, those are not always easy to find. I'm absolutely okay with, I think he's worth every bit of that $3.75 million AAV. Totally okay with him being a top 4 defenseman on this team. Yeah, I have no problems with Carrier being brought back at all. Because if he can take the steps in his offensive game, oh my God.
I still think that Carrier has a little upside left.
I think so too.
Especially with his offensive game. I mean, he's got a good foundation to him already. I mean, we saw it. He's a well-rounded two-way defenseman. He's not going to get into the physicality of the game necessarily, although he's proven to be a really good he's good at getting in the way of pucks. We'll give him that. 3rd on the team in block shots this past year behind Josi and McDonough. So I'm not saying he's not willing to get in the dirty areas, but he's not a bruiser. He's not a highly physical guy at all. We don't want to see Carrier taking any more fights and dropping the gloves. Please don't.
Right, yeah.
But he is a great two-way defenseman, and I think his offensive game has more growth to do, crazy enough to say, because he's been in the organization for so long. But I think this is it really solidifies the defensive corps now. It makes Dante Fabro, as we just said, even more of a trade-worthy player. Yeah. And it keeps Lauzon and Carrier together, which was very important. And, we always thought, like, the Preds treated Carrier as a rental, as their own rental. That's what was thrown around when he wasn't traded at the trade deadline. But,
which I was
to see where we're at now, and they figured out a way to keep him on top of getting Brady Skjei, even though we don't like the 7 years. They still got him. All of a sudden, you're looking at the Preds. You're already really excited about the top 6 and the power play. Now you're seeing the Preds D Corps, a fully healthy Preds D Corps. There's injuries happen, but on paper, again, like Trotz said, on paper, we're looking damn good right now.
Yeah, I was talking to one of my buddies last night, and he was basically saying that if you look at like the best players on the Preds, like Forsberg, Stamkos, O'Reilly, Marchessault, Josi, Skjei, Saros, like you can throw it against any team's like best players, and the Preds are going to be like right up there.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So
we're feeling good about that for sure. Got to get into our next topic here, which is, of course, the Juuse Saros extension. Let's get it up on the screen as well. But before we do that, Max, we shared it on our X account, our bottom dollar. I had our top dollar, I should say. I had $7.5 million per year. I even said that to keep him, you're going to have to give him long-term stability, which 8 years, I think, is long-term stability. Yeah. First, address the AAV and how you feel about that. And then if you could address the length of the contract as well.
I'm more okay with it than I thought I'd be. I was if I were GM, I was going to go into it completely. I was originally going to a completely lowballing Saros. I was thinking maybe 6.5. If not, then trade him. That was obviously really low. That was never going to happen. But and I was going back to when you and I had that episode when after the Jacob Markstrom trade, I said at the time, look, Calgary didn't have a ton of leverage. He's older too. Like they had to make a move quickly. But when we then saw the Linus Ullmark trade, Ottawa got him for basically nothing. And at that point, I'm like, okay, maybe Saros really is not going to get much on the trade market. And I think that's kind of what Barry Trotz realized over time. And we'd seen David Pagnotta from the fourth period reporting Saros wants $8 million plus per year, and the Preds aren't going to want to pay him that. Well, Saros came down on his asking price below $8 million a year. And one thing I said in my Predlines article when the Saros extension happened, I said, I completely understand why the Preds kept them, because you were almost certainly going to lose trade negotiations, but they appear to have won contract negotiations. And you got to think, not necessarily, there's of course like the straight up flip, like payment, like return of trades, all that. You got to think, what are you getting the most value out of your players for? And I think the Preds got more value out of keeping him in this case than what they would have gotten trading him. And the Ullmark trade really kind of changed my mind on that. And I will say also, we still don't quite know the details as far as no move and no trade clauses. I don't care as much about that. I mean, I care a little bit, but you're not signing a player like Saros like that to trade him. That's not really a thought at all. But I mean, overall though, with how it went down and knowing what was going to happen for the Preds, I'm okay with it.
So we know he was underpaid for a while, $5 million per year. Now he is, if everything holds, and obviously the goalie market's going to change before his next contract goes into effect, but $7.74 million AAV will make him the fourth highest currently among goalies. 61.92 total value in millions of dollars, according to Puckpedia, which I need everyone to go check out Puckpedia if you haven't already, because they are and they're awesome. I've been using their site all day. They've revamped it. Puckpedia, his name's Hart. He actually joined the podcast in the very early days, like the first 10 episodes. He was so kind at that time to come on our podcast. But I'm sure he's so busy right now. But he's doing a great job with Puckpedia. It's an outstanding website for the alternative to Cap Friendly, which is about to go away. Thank you, Washington Capitals. Yeah, kind of messed up. But yeah, so Puckpedia, everyone needs to go check it out. It's a great website, so interactive, it's user-friendly, tons of info. And they've done a great job really revamping it and getting it ready, because I'm sure they're getting so much extra just like exposure now that Cap Friendly's gone. But yeah, so $61.92 total million total value. And also over the last 3 seasons, Saros has the most starts in the NHL at 194. So this is all about going with the proven commodity and hitching your wagon to that over rolling the dice. And even though everyone thinks that Askarov is going to be a great, outstanding starting goalie in the NHL, it would have been very, very risky to just move on from Saros and go with that.
Yeah, I mean, I think I still think Askarov's gonna have a really good career, but you're right. You don't know that for sure. And again, but I really think a lot of it changed just when Trotz saw the returns that Markstrom and Ullmark were getting, and then when he realized, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I'm not in the room. This is only what I suspect happened, but I kind of think when he realized, he got the better of the contract negotiations, but wouldn't have won the trade ones. That's where I kind of think where he was like, okay, let's get him back. Because again, that report from David Pagnotta had said that the Preds were not super keen on paying him the $8 million a year. And to be fair, Pagnotta's report really was not wrong. The Preds didn't end up paying him $8 million a year. So something had to give, and ultimately Saros was the one who gave way.
Yeah. So yeah, we got someone else on YouTube here jumping in. Sly there. I don't even know what the name is there. Sly there in
I
Nurse.
totally agree with what they're saying, though. I totally agree with what they're
Okay.
saying.
Anyway, all right. I don't know the user's name, but here, non-issue now, but wouldn't have been surprised if Stamkos deal and possibly Marchessault did not happen if it were not for the Juuse extension.
I completely agree.
Stamkos blatantly stated the need for quality goaltending. Oh, great comment here on YouTube. Awesome. Maybe the comment of the night. We've had a lot of good comments tonight, by the way. You guys are bringing it. We love it. But that's a good angle that I haven't thought about. The Juuse Saros angle to the Steven Stamkos signing.
No, I really think that as well, because I again, this is only what we suspect is happening. But my thought is Trotz really did kind of go into the offseason thinking, okay, let's get younger. Let's go for the future. But once he kind of realized the goaltender market and got Saros back under contract, that's when I kind of suspect that he flipped thinking, okay, maybe we really can go for it now.
Yeah, Alex jumps in the conversation here about Saros. Says, with them signing Saros to 8 years, I don't know if you can keep Askarov for too long. You're not paying Saros all this money to play 50 or less games a year.
Yeah.
So, I mean, from what, Trotz could be playing coy with all of us here, but he says that there's going to be competition in training camp and that if Askarov blows the roof off in training camp, then they'll have to basically have the conversation with Wedgwood, but it works both ways. Now, he could just be saying that. I don't know why you would give a guy 2 years to be pressed in training camp by a prospect. That seems like a stretch a little bit, but that's what Trotz says anyway. So that'll be something to watch in training camp, and especially in the preseason. Does Askarov, I don't know how much opportunity you really get in preseason when it comes to goalies to really do it, though. I mean, yeah, you get a couple games here and there, but I mean, it's going to be really in the training camp practices and the coaches actually watching these two guys compete to see. But almost certainly, if Askarov isn't traded by then, he's going to start in Milwaukee.
Yeah,
and they're gonna let him simmer down there. Hopefully, he just has a ridiculously good year in Milwaukee, like he just did. Quite frankly, he just had a great year in Milwaukee the previous year. If he can do that again, he's trade deadline bait at worst.
Yes. And here's the thing I'll say at the end of the day. Barry Trotz said, I mean, of course, you can never know what GMs are believing, but I do believe this. Barry Trotz said yesterday at the press conference that we're keeping Askarov in the loop. We're being transparent. We know what he wants. We know what we want. And who knows what happens. But again, as long as you're doing it in good faith, as long as that's happening, I'm okay with it. Again, it's a business, but as long as you do things in genuinely good faith, fine by me.
And I wholeheartedly believe that Trotz is a transparent general manager. Yeah. This is why players are beating down the door to come play for him.
Especially with how he traded McDonough and said did him that favor. I completely believe Trotz on that one.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you saw in the press conference where he basically said, it was a mutual agreement between McDonough and Trotz to make that happen. Yeah. So, I mean, players see that. The superstar players around the league see what type of general manager Trotz is, and they see Nashville is an amazing city. They see the core of the team that's already there, and they see Andrew Brunette, a rising star among head coaches. I mean, there's just so much going for it that these players know what it's like to be on the road side of things when they go into Bridgestone Arena when it's rocking. I know that this past season there were times where Bridgestone Arena was not rocking. But once
there were also times that it was.
Once this team started winning, though, that place got loud again.
You should have been in the building the night when we came back from 3 goals down against Vegas to win. Oh my God! That was insane.
Yeah.
Whew.
So great point brought up though about how the Saros extension could have definitely played a role in signing these free agents. I think that's a really good point. But I want to touch more on Yaroslav Askarov a little bit, but before we do that, we got to show love now to our sponsor, DraftKings. Bet the action on the ice with DraftKings Sportsbook. Download the app now and use code THPN. New customers can get $150 instantly in bonus bets for betting just $5 on hockey. That's code THPN only on DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NHL. The crown is yours. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. Gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.1800gambler.net. In New York, call 877-8-HOPENY or text HOPENY. That's 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly on behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort. 21 plus, age varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. See dkng.com/hockey for eligibility and deposit restrictions, terms, and responsible gaming resources. NHL and the NHL Shield are registered trademarks of the National Hockey League. Copyright NHL 2023, all rights reserved. So let's get into it with Yaroslav Askarov and the best path forward. I still think that you could maybe trade him now, but it's probably not going to be what you need. I think the better path forward now is to, unless you just get a ridiculous offer that you're not expecting, I think the goalie market is kind of set right now. I think teams have satisfied their needs either through free agency or through trades, and that you're not going to get really what you want for Askarov, and you need to actually play the long game here and see what he can do in Milwaukee, see what Scott Wedgwood can do for you, which is just a complete wild card in all this. I'm not entirely sure. I mean, I'm not freaking out over Wedgwood because it's a very modest deal, and obviously you weren't going to be able to keep Kevin Lankinen as much as you wanted to. First of all, I haven't checked it recently.
I don't think he has.
Since we went on live, I haven't checked, but earlier today, he was not on the team.
Name mentioned at all.
I cannot believe that. And I feel horrible for Lankinen, to be quite honest, because he's earned it.
You figure he's gonna get a deal somewhere. Not every player signs within the first few days. He could just be waiting it out.
Is he going to get a starter's role somewhere? Probably not.
Probably not, but
and that's what he was banking on. That's what he was looking for.
Yeah, I guess, but but I've not seen him being signed anywhere.
I mean, looking back on it now, I hate to say it, but Lankinen probably wishes he would have just stayed with Nashville at this point.
I mean, he would have wanted more money than Wedgwood, but maybe maybe.
I don't know. I don't know what went on behind closed doors. I haven't really heard anyone really even talk about it. I didn't hear Trotz address it. It's been kind of just like a hush thing, like just moved on. It's almost like he never played here. And he had a great year this past year. I mean, his numbers weren't
he had two really good years.
His numbers weren't like through the roof, but like for a backup role. And actually his numbers were mirrored Juuse Saros' numbers in terms of goals against average and save percentage. They were pretty much the exact same. And Lankinen was actually in the positive in goals saved above expected. He was like a 4.3, whereas Saros finished the season in the negative. So just when you're looking at that, Lankinen had a great year. So he definitely earned himself a starter's role, but he's not anywhere as far as we know right now. And so where does Lankinen go? I guess he probably ends up going somewhere where he can give competition in training camp. Maybe Utah. I've heard Utah is a possibility for Lankinen. The Utah Hockey Club.
Yeah.
He'll go somewhere. He'll end up somewhere, but I'm just really surprised he hasn't gotten a deal yet. But when it comes to Wedgwood and Askarov, they're going to battle it out in training camp. Now, what happens, Max, hypothetically, if for whatever reason Wedgwood puts out a really underwhelming performance in training camp and preseason, and Askarov just completely blows the roof off, then what do? You got a player signed to 2 years, not the end of the world, but you got a player signed to 2 years. And then do we go back to our original plan that I kind of had out for Askarov, which is you back up Saros for half the season, and then if Askarov looks great in his backup role on the NHL level, then he's really good trade bait at the trade deadline.
I guess that could happen. I mean, if we are going to see, not Trotz, what am I saying? If we're going to see Askarov and Wedgwood really battle this thing out during training camp, I guess worst case scenario, if Wedgwood really does lay an egg, then you could place him on waivers, and if he goes unclaimed, he could go to the minors. So I guess that's an option, and it wouldn't really hurt the Preds because then that salary for the year just goes on the books in Milwaukee. But again, ultimately though, if the question really is Askarov, I would think that it's only a matter of when, not if, he eventually gets dealt. Because if there's one thing we're getting right, he and Saros cannot be together for the entire 8 years of his. That's just not.
Well,
I don't think anyone's going to dispute that.
And his ELC is about to expire. This is the last year of Askarov's ELC. So
and here's something interesting. This is a far-fetched example, but what's stopping if someone likes what they see from Askarov going into next year, someone gives them an offer sheet? Again, that's very, very unlikely, but then that makes if you're the Preds and you're fearing that, you're thinking, okay, we really got to make a decision.
Yeah. I don't know how this is going to work out necessarily, but it's most likely going to be Wedgwood's crease in the backup role to start the season. You watch Askarov closely, you see what happens, and it's all going to be based on performance until that right trade offer comes up. And you just really, really, if you're from the Preds standpoint, you really, really hope that Askarov has a strong year in Milwaukee, and he doesn't let this. First of all, he doesn't let this screw up his head in the game, and that he uses this as fuel for his fire. And he's a highly competitive and animated player, so I'm not worried about Askarov taking this to be a bad thing. I think he's going to be more motivated to just put out another spectacular year with the Admirals, and then that's only going to boost his trade value. And if you're thinking about Askarov right now in his shoes or his skates, he's thinking right now, I got to boost my trade value. I got to find an organization that wants me now, and I got to play my best. I got to be at the very top level. So if you're a Milwaukee Admirals fan right now, you're probably thinking, okay, we're going to get Askey for a little bit longer here, maybe. Hopefully he shows out and he proves everybody wrong and he gets a new team.
Some things just got to give. And
something's got to give.
His future's not in Nashville. And I've seen some people say depending on the trade protection, you can have Saros for a few years and trade him a few years into his contract. I don't think so. I don't get that line of thinking. You're not signing a guy like that unless you have every intention of riding it out with them. I think that's just really overthinking it. If you made a decision to keep Saros, roll with him and trade the other guy. I don't think it's that complicated.
It's reported that the asking price for Yaroslav Askarov is very high right now.
Yes.
And that the Preds got plenty of interest during the draft. They got plenty of interest, but that asking price was a little too high. And I've been saying that Trotz is in a power position here. If he doesn't see a deal he likes, he doesn't have to cave. Don't cave. Hold on to Askarov. You don't have to trade him right now. Let teams think about it. Let things happen. As the season goes next year, things are going to happen. Goalies are going to play like crap. Guys are going to get hurt, unfortunately. Things are going to happen that's going to once again unveil goalie-hungry teams that need a goalie. Right now, the market's being reset. Teams have gone out there and got the goalies they want. I don't think teams are going to really be beating down the door for Askarov right now. Let it play out. Let it play out. Let it play out. You'll get a good trade offer for Askarov eventually. I think you will. All right. We got a couple more things. Speaking of the NHL draft, let's talk about the top two picks. We have the rest of the offseason to get into the rest of the draft class, but let's talk about Igor Surin first, the Russian winger with a high motor, fits this team perfectly. A lot of scouts are saying that he was a tweener between early second round, late first round, high ceiling, plays with a very aggressive edge. I watched the Locked On Prospects episode on Surin coming into tonight, and they put out some good stuff on this guy. They called him. They called him. Let's see, what do they call him here? They called him skilled, violent, and raw. Those are the three words they used for Igor Surin.
Yeah, it certainly seems like he has that dog mentality of just being tough as nails, super aggressive, all that kind of stuff. And again, those are the kind of guys that shows that Trotz, likes to go after. And then, all the times that we heard that Barry Trotz was apparently, calling, was on the phone a ton, he was trying to trade up for Yegor Surin, which seems questionable. But again, that was a guy he really wanted. And I saw something tonight that apparently one of the first, he talked to Mark Borowiecki and asked, how can I hit people? Like that's great.
I saw that.
He's a character dude and a guy who's good. Again, he was going to bring the energy. Like I said, the dog mentality.
So yeah, what I got from that Locked On Prospects podcast, which I go check it out on YouTube. Just type in Yegor Sarin, it'll pop right up. Good stuff from that podcast. But they call him skilled, violent, and raw. And another thing they really talked about with Sarin is he is incredibly entertaining to watch. He battles, he battles for pucks. He plays with a very high motor. Sometimes that can work against him, though. And the only thing I can think of is, do we have another Zachary Leroux type player? That's what I was kind of
thinking, maybe a lesser Zachary Leroux, but also, although I will say, when Zachary Leroux was drafted, everyone was made aware, like, guys, he's kind of out of control sometimes. Like, he really takes penalties. I don't get quite that same vibe with Surin. I'm not saying I know a ton about the guy, but I don't get the vibe that it's quite to that extent with Surin.
Yeah. Another thing, one high ceiling NHL comparable player that they're comparing Sarin to is Matthew Tkachuk. Now, obviously, we're not saying he's going to be
right,
but he plays with that type of style of chip on his shoulder. Sometimes that can get him into trouble. Sometimes that does get him into taking really bad sloppy penalties. But all of that is stuff that can be worked on down the road. But when you're thinking about right now, the Predators take a player that fits their mold perfectly. It fits the type of style that this team likes to play with. So you're thinking way down the road, because we're talking about a prospect that's only played in the Russian junior leagues. For this draft class, he was considered a very, very young player.
Yeah, he's only 17.
So this is a way down the road type of draft pick here. But when you're picking at number 22, your star potential really drops. Like it doesn't mean you can't find superstars all throughout the draft. But once you get out of that top 10, and also this draft class wasn't particularly deep when it came to superstar level types of players. When you're at that number 22 position, you're kind of taking swings. You're taking swings, and you're hoping you hit something. It's really just how it works.
Was willing to trade up for him.
So look, here's what we got here. Kyle Pereira, again, I told you, he's a big scouting type of he writes scouting reports for all the players. So you need to go check him out. He's been on the podcast twice in the past. I really wish I could have gotten him on before the draft this year, but just personal things were going on. But here's what we got. We're lucky enough to get him joining us on YouTube here in the comments. And here's what Kyle says about Sarin. Sarin plays with that sandpaper, but he doesn't go out of his way to play that way. He's a skilled playmaker who needs a lot of work on his skating.
Yeah, that does kind of make me kind of feel what I said was true. Like, he's kind of like Leroux, but kind of lesser extent than Leroux.
Yeah, so it's going to be a long-term project, but his foundation, the foundation in those raw skills that Sarin already has, is something you can hopefully build around. A lot of people, including myself, are actually maybe a little bit more excited about the second-round pick. The Predators.
I think you're not the only one at all.
And I want to get Kyle's Pereira's thoughts on this as well, if he jumps in on the comments, and he's still sticking around with us here. But with the Predators' 55th overall pick, their second-round pick, they took left wing Teddy Stiga of the U.S. development team, first round ceiling type of player, and a little undersized at 5'10", but 36 goals in 61 games across all competition. He's an offensive driver. Everything I'm seeing in scouting reports, and Kyle can hopefully jump in and top on and elaborate more in the comments here, but he's a great passer. This guy is a quarterback. He makes his line mates better around him with the way he dissects things. And so let's see. Kyle's jumping in on the comments here. I'm not going to lie. I wasn't very high on Stiga, but a second round pick is a great spot. So there you have it. So see, it could be a steal. So that's what Kyle has to say on that. When you take a player at 55th overall, I mean, second line potential is what I'm seeing. I'm seeing some scouts say he's got his top ceiling could be second line potential in the NHL one day. So you're seeing that, a balanced player between his shooting and his passing. I wanted to just give a little bit of a history lesson real quick because I wanted to go back and look at notable second round picks in Preds history. You ready for this, Max?
Yeah.
Some good ones in here. How about Shea Weber? He was a second round pick in 2003, 49th overall. Blake Jeffrion, who we had Sam Jeffries on the podcast a few months ago talking about his book covering Blake Jeffrion and his journey to the NHL. So go back and find that episode in our library. How about the current captain of the Nashville Predators?
Yeah.
Roman Josi was a second round pick, 2008, 38th overall. It's crazy to think that Roman Josi was drafted in 2008. The guy still looks so young. I mean,
he's in his mid-30s, damn near.
It's crazy, though. I mean, it makes me feel really old. How about Colton Sissons, 2012, 50th overall pick? He was a second-round pick. I would have to say that was a really damn good one in the second round. Yakov Trenin, who's now going to the Minnesota Wild in free agency. Yakov Trenin was a 2015 second-round pick by the Preds, 55th overall. And let's get a little bit more current here. The most recent second-round pick that looks really good for the Predators as of now is, of course, Luke Evangelista in the 2020 draft. He was taken 42nd overall. So, obviously, you can find some really outstanding talent in the second round, and there's a lot to like about Teddy Stiga.
Yeah, I mean, it just what you said, it just goes to show how the draft just goes sometimes. You can pick guys in the top 5 who completely flame out, but then you can get guys like in the second or even later rounds who are complete studs. I mean, it just you never know with the draft sometimes.
You never know. It's not a perfect science. They will tell you that.
Yeah,
even the best scouts in the league will tell you it's not a perfect science. One more thing about Stiga here from Kyle Pereira. He says he's got great puck handling skill, strong playmaking, but he plays so chaotically all over the place, no organization. NCAA will be very telling of his trajectory. Got some upside as a playoff type. So there you have it. Thank you, Kyle, for jumping in on the comments and giving us some really good in-depth analysis on the top draft picks. We're going to dive deeper into the draft class in the future episodes later in this offseason on Catfish and Ice. But I did want to touch on really quick. The Preds do take a goalie in round 4. I'm going to botch this name. Jacob Malota. I don't know. Couldn't find a lot of stuff on him. I really couldn't. I tried to find stuff on him online. Couldn't find it. But Elite Prospects does say skating and footwork around the post is his best attributes. He's 6'1", 170 pounds. So a little undersized, a lot like Saros is undersized. So there you have it there. Also very interesting about the draft class, Max. The Preds only took one defenseman in their entire draft class.
Yeah, they went heavy on the forwards and in free agency going really heavy on the forwards.
So I was a little surprised by that because we've seen other draft classes in the past where the Preds went heavy on defense. So it's kind of interesting to just see it kind of flip. All right. Predictions helped me here. Probably pronounced Jakob. I know a few guys with that name at my job. All right, we'll go with Jakob. Kyle says, didn't watch goalies this year. My input is 0 here.
Man.
I'm telling you, I could not find much on him. I couldn't. There wasn't much out there. But 4th round pick, we'll keep an eye on it. Let's round out this marathon episode 237 of Catfish on Ice. We just passed the hour and a half mark. It's been a lot of fun. We're going to wrap up this episode with the schedule release. I'm not missing anything, am I, Max?
Did we want to talk also about some other free agent signings? Just kind of go over those for a few minutes.
Yeah, let's hit on it really quick. What are some free agency signings around the league that really stood out to you, Max?
I would say there's a few that stood out to me, and I didn't see a ton that were actually great. I was actually kind of surprised. There weren't a ton that were absolutely
Do you
crazy.
think take your bias aside, do you think the Preds actually won the day?
I mean, I kind of think so.
It's hard to argue against, right?
I mean, yeah, I would say some other free agency signings that kind of were I would say kind of notable were I would say Boston had two signings I kind of thought were questionable. They got Nikita Zadorov for 6 years at $5 million a year. Then they signed Elias Lindholm after 2 down years, 7 years at $7.75 million a year. I don't know about that one.
I mean, the Dallas Stars really stood out to me and how they didn't do much. Like that was kind of surprising to me. And the signings they did make was very questionable. You're talking about a team whose Stanley Cup window is wide open, but they needed to make some things happen, and they didn't seem to do that.
We're lucky Matt Duchene doesn't have to take much. He can just accept the money he's making from Nashville in the buyout.
Yeah. Don't even get me started on that. I think the Preds are paying
$6.5 million or $5.5.
It's $5.5 million. It's $5.5.
Something nuts.
It's approximately $5.5 million.
Something insane.
But we don't want to dwell on that too much.
I would say 2 other free agency signings that were kind of crazy. I would say Chandler Stevenson, a guy the Preds were in on. He's went to Seattle for like, what was it, 7 years, $6.25 million AAV. Pretty pricey there. But the one signing that really made my jaw drop, Columbus paying Sean Monahan 5 years at $5.5 million a year. Is that not insane?
That is a little insane.
And I'll also say, and I will explain myself here. So I wrote an article several weeks back for Predline saying 5 free agent forwards I want the Preds to target, and Sean Monahan was one of them. But my thought with that was when he was in Calgary, he was really, really good. Then he vanished almost to the point of his career being over. But then he had a resurgent year in Montreal and then Winnipeg towards the end of the year. And my thought was, okay, the Preds could sign him, and if they could maybe 1 or 2 years to kind of make himself prove it. If he's great, that's awesome. If he doesn't pan out, not a big deal. But Columbus got him for 5 years. 5 years.
Yeah,
that's insane.
Pretty strange.
And I know they teamed back with Johnny Gaudreau, but I mean, good Lord. That's a risk. And I mean, it could work out for them. It could work out for them. But man, that is a gamble and a half.
The Predators really did steal the day, though, when you think about it. I mean, Jake Gensel goes to the Lightning, so they're trying to.
That's another crazy one. $9 million. He was he must have been I think he was the highest, but he's making more than Sam Reinhart per year.
I'm just going through some of the ones here that I'm looking at. Pat Maroon goes to the Blackhawks. Jack Campbell, who's going through so much and had a horrible year, goes to the Red Wings. I mean, these are all really minor signings, but I'm just kind of going through it quickly. Matt Dumba, that was the one I was talking about with the Stars. Just a really odd 2 year, $7.5 million total value. That's just, I don't get that at all for Dallas.
Tyler Toffoli to San Jose, 4 years, $6 million a year. That's pretty pricey, although not terrible.
We had Anthony Duclair circled as a possible free agency target for the Predators. He goes to the Islanders, so I think that's a really good get for them. I mean, I really like Anthony Duclair as a scorer. Also mentioning the Stars, they get their backup goalie since they lost Wedgwood. They're getting Casey DeSmith for 3 years at $1 million AAV. How about former Predator Anthony Beauvillier, which was a complete, that experiment didn't work out. Beauvillier signs a 1 year, $1.25 million deal with the Pittsburgh Penguins. Jason Zucker goes to the Buffalo Sabres. Yep. You got Victor Arvidsson, former Pred, goes to the Edmonton Oilers. That's a great landing spot for him.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's great.
I've even seen him slotted in their top 6, possibly.
Here's another one that I would say didn't drop, maybe not as much as the Monahan signing, but another one that was pretty crazy. Chris Tanev in Toronto, 6 years for a 34-year-old man, $4.5 million a year. That's okay. But get this, a full no movement clause throughout the length of the deal. I mean, did you hear what I said? I don't know if you heard what I was saying.
I got to plug in my laptop real quick. Hold on.
Okay.
My laptop's literally telling me I'm about to die and your episode's about to be cut short. So let me just keep going, man.
Oh, yeah, but I was basically saying, and I don't know if you heard, but Chris Tanev in Toronto for 6 years, 34 years old, $4.5 million a year, which isn't terrible, but a full no movement clause throughout the deal.
Yeah.
That's insane.
I don't see a lot of teams that really won the day for me who really moved the needle. And I'm not just saying that because I'm being biased here about the Predators, but it's just, you see some of these deals and you're like, I mean, it's just hard to really see any teams that really like moved the needle that much other than the Predators. I mean, there were teams that made good deals. I'm not saying that no one had a good day, but I mean, Nikita Zadorov goes to the Bruins. He was a big free agent.
I was worried we were going to sign him. Thankfully, we didn't.
Elias Lindholm also goes to the Bruins.
Yeah, I thought Boston really had a questionable day.
How about Brett Pesce? Let's talk about him a little bit. He was being linked. He was being linked to the Predators very strongly. Another pretty ugly exit. Like the Hurricanes just couldn't keep everyone they wanted to keep. They had so many good players who outperformed their contracts. If you're a Hurricanes fan right now, you're pretty upset because your window was open. It's been open for a few years. You didn't do what you could with it. The salary cap finally caught up with you.
Now, my buddy who's a Canes fan, who I referenced early in the episode, he's kind of freaking out right now.
Yeah, I mean, it happens to everyone. When that window's open, you better seize it. But Brett Pesce goes to the Devils. Great pickup for them. 6 years at $33 million total. So that one probably sticks. Outside of the Predators picks, that one really stood out to me. But yeah, I mean, other than that, I mean, there's not really a ton of moves that really stick out to me.
One of the ones I actually liked, and I can't believe I'm about to say good things about the Chicago Blackhawks, and some people may not agree, I like them signing Tyler Bertuzzi for 4 years at $5.5 million. I think that guy, you can add some.
The Blackhawks are actually very active.
I thought they had a decent day. They got Teuvo Teravainen 3 years, $5.5 million about. I will say though, I mean, with Tyler Bertuzzi, he was also one of the guys I had circled for the Preds potentially. He's a guy that has some middle to top six kind of potential. He's physical. I think that guy is a good fit to play alongside a guy like Bedard. I thought that was a smart move by the Blackhawks there.
And then also another player, another free agent that was really being linked to the Predators, and fans were like, "Oh my gosh, I really hope we get this player." Brandon Montour.
Oh yeah.
He gets his Stanley Cup with the Panthers, and now he's going out west to the Seattle Kraken. Montour signs
more than Skjei by a little bit.
7 years. Yeah, 7 years.
Yeah.
At just under 50 million total value.
Yeah. It's a lot.
So that really covers most of them. Also, really quick, just to get back, since I'm going down the list now, another reason why the Stars had a really, really bad free agency day is Chris Tanev. I mean, they did what they could to get him at the trade deadline. They had Stanley Cup or bust potential. They don't even make it to the final. They lose in the conference finals. And then they don't even find a way to hold on to Tanev, which there were indications that they were going to be able to keep him.
I thought they would.
But they lose Tanev. Tanev is out. He goes to the Toronto Maple Leafs for 6 years, $27 million. But on the flip side of that, there's not a lot of people out there who like that contract for the.
That's what I'm saying. A full no move clause in it.
Like, is Tanev really? He's a good guy. He's a good player.
He's a really good defenseman, but like, I don't know.
I think, I don't know what the Maple Leafs are.
I don't know about that.
We'll see what happens.
Yeah, they seem desperate. That's what I'll say.
The Panthers find a way to hold on to Sam Reinhart, so good move for them. So that basically covers it. It was a very busy free agency day, but absolutely the Predators stole the show. I mean, you don't have to be biased to say that.
No, I definitely. This is one time where I can kind of shamelessly say I think my team won the day.
All right, let's do a quick wrap up here right as we come close to the 2-hour mark. Let's talk about the schedule real quick, the release. We don't have to break down all 82 games. Otherwise, we'll be here till 3 a.m.
Yeah, right.
But Max, I got to give a round of applause to the schedule makers for scheduling Dallas to open the season at Bridgestone Arena.
I'll do everything I can to be there.
Dallas fans travel well. They love a reason to come to Nashville, so we don't have to worry about that. You got the Matt Duchene effect. You got the fact that it's been a growing rivalry ever since 2019.
That arena is probably going to be loud.
These two teams always give us a great game. I mean, just think about the season series last year.
They do not like each other. They do not.
I mean, think about the Winter Classic and what happened there. Think about the Matt Duchene effect. Think about how much fans dislike and hate, including our former co-host, Rich Howe, dislike Jamie Benn. Just think about all the intertwinings. It's a Central Division rivalry. Two Southern City fan bases who always feel like they're being overlooked by the rest of the NHL Blue Bloods. It's a great season opener. The only other team I could think of that would have been maybe a little bit more interesting would have been the Canucks, just because first round rematch type of thing. But that season opener on October 10th on a Thursday is going to have eyes on it all around the NHL, not just the fan bases of the Stars and the Predators. Obviously with Steven Stamkos and that new look team, the entire NHL. I can't wait to see the national TV schedule.
You gotta think those are going to be the two favorites to win the Central, right?
I would think so. Also the Avalanche
maybe, but like they kind of seem to be trending downward.
They also did. The Avalanche basically did nothing.
Yeah, they might have done even less than in Dallas.
I mean, they basically just sat this one out. The Avalanche did, but yeah, I'm gonna pull up the actual schedule really quick, just to kind of give you my thoughts. But yeah, I think that's an awesome season opener for sure. Going to be really fun to see that. I saw that 5 of the first 6 games of the season are at home for the Predators. So that's kind of interesting to see that them getting a lot of games at home. Also, they play the Red Wings twice in October. They host the Oilers at Bridgestone Arena twice in October. And when you're talking about revenge tours, and you're talking about Stamkos, he will go to Tampa for his first game. Talk about awkward, talk about weird.
But those fans are going to do one hell of a tribute.
Of course. Oh, absolutely. There's not going to be a dry eye in that arena.
Including maybe even his own.
And I'm already looking at getting tickets to that game. I'm sure.
Oh, yeah, you have to.
I'm right across the bridge from.
Yeah, you got to drop an arm and a leg on that if you have to.
I will. I got plenty of time to save my money up. But yeah, Stamkos, it's October 28th. So the NHL, they're not making us wait for that one. Marchessault, on the other hand, will only have to play at Vegas once, and that's not until April 12th.
Jeez.
Third to last game of the season. Preds don't really have any long road trips until late December, where they have 6 in a row on the road, and they'll be away from home for a while. So, I mean, everyone has to play their schedule out. Everyone plays the same schedule in terms of in the division and stuff. But that's very beneficial to play 5 of your first 6 games at home, considering how rocking that arena is going to be. With all this new excitement.
But there will be more pressure that way.
There will be more pressure, and the Preds were not a strong home team last year for whatever reason. It was very perplexing. But let's just remember what Trotz said. Let's remember this team. Let's not panic here if the Preds stumble out of the gate. And that's what I think about. 5 of the first 6 games at home. Let's say they have a rough opening at home. I need fans to calm down. Take a deep breath. It's going to be okay. But we know that never happens.
But the thing is, though, with the great signings and the homestand, but comes great expectations, and also you have to live up to the expectations. I mean, it's not going to. And the Preds are not going to, like last year when no one really expected things of the Preds. That's not going to be the case this year. All eyes are on the Preds, and let's face it, expectations put more pressure. You got to live up to them. You absolutely do. It is not. Like it's not like we're going to sit here and say, oh, the Preds just going to the Cup. No, they got to prove that stuff.
Of course they do. And Trotz said the same thing. Yeah. And to round out this regular season schedule, they will also play the Dallas Stars at home.
I did see that. That's great.
So it's kind of like funny how like everything comes full circle. And for all we know, especially if they think that the Stars and the Preds are going to be your top 2 contenders, I would not discount Colorado though. Like Colorado
you can't just throw them out of the. No.
So I mean, there's your top 3 right there, at least on paper, and it's going to be a hell of a fight between those 3 teams. No disrespect to the other teams in the Central Division, but yeah, that regular season finale could definitely maybe be for the Central Division. We don't know. It could. So that's what the schedule writers were thinking there for sure. But anyway, it's been a marathon episode. It's been a lot of fun. It's been episode 237. We got so much love in the comments today, and we really love all of you. You make this podcast what it is. It's you guys when you're here, when you're commenting, when you're talking with each other, when you're giving us all your takes and you're giving us all your knowledge about the game and about the teams. That's what makes this podcast so awesome. It's what makes it possible. So I give you my thanks. I give my thanks also to Max for being an awesome co-host.
Thanks to all you guys as well, and you too, Chad.
And I give thanks to our sponsors. I give thanks to our amazing network that we're a part of that gives us the platform, the Hockey Podcast Network. Just thanks all the way around. It's been a really fun episode. It's been a great off season, and we've got more to get into. Until then, we're signing off for the night. We hope you have a great night, and we will see you soon. Take care.
See you guys later.